All right, on to houses 1 through 6. So starting first with house 1, this house has to do with the individual. As I said earlier, planets that land in the first house are ones that we tend to self-identify with. So when we have Saturn in the first house, that's the planet of responsibility, discipline. It is a restrictive planet. It is one that can, it's in Pisces, so anytime wherever Saturn falls, we're going to want to be using that zodiac sign, using sort of its keywords and its the things that are Piscean. It's going to want to be using those in a productive manner. So being someone who is, again, perhaps in the realm of imagination, spirituality, being someone who's out in the world, helping others, bringing some sort of charitable benefit to other people's lives in a way that's probably attached to work, attached to like adult responsibilities. With people with Saturn in the first house, they many times associate, or they tend to align themselves with responsibilities. They tend to, in their lives, take on responsibilities that are sort of duties that can end up being kind of burdens. They can see themselves as, well, I'm the person who's always cleaning up after other people or taking care of other people's stuff. I'm the one that if someone needs my help, I show up and I help them, even if it's at my kind of sacrifice. If it's to help improve someone else's station, then I'm willing to put in the work if necessary. And when it's in Pisces, again, you just got to be really careful about being taken advantage of by people who might request your help, but maybe don't need it. They're using you, So that can be an issue, just with Pisces, with a strongly Piscean chart in general. But plus with Saturn in the first house, there's that tendency to identify as a responsible, dutiful person. And so therefore, maybe having a hard time saying no to people when they ask for assistance. And this is in particular with Saturn and Pisces in the first house, okay? Now also in your first house, you have the moon. And as I was mentioning earlier, wherever the moon falls, we tend to see flux, okay? If you think of the moon as this heavenly body, it's our satellite, it's constantly changing, it's consistently changing, like we can predict, know when we'll have a full moon, when we're going to have a quarter moon, we'll have a new moon, but it's still always in a state of flux. And wherever the moon falls, that part of our life tends to also be in a state of flux. The first house is the house that we attach to identity. So the sense of who you are, you're going to think of yourself as someone who is a feeling individual. And I think I mentioned that on the other video. You're gonna identify with being compassionate, with being selfless, with being someone who is, there's a dreamy, drifty, fantasy escaping, like reality escaping quality to Pisces. And the moon in Pisces can be like that. On the high side, that can lead to really fantastic flights of fancy, which might be very artistic, right? I've seen strong Pisces and strong Neptune in artist charts. Actors, singers, musicians will many times have strong Pisces or Neptune in their chart. What you can run into, though, is I suppose, well, what I was trying to say, the shadow side of things is that sort of escapist. The high side would be the creative side, but the shadow side, escaping reality and sort of living in a dream world, and even at times feeling like, with that idealism of Pisces, feeling like the real world and your sort of idea of what the world should be, having them not match up with one another, and then that leading to a certain level of disillusionment about life. In the first house also, you've got Aries, and Aries is our protagonist. It's the, naturally Aries is the zodiac sign that we associate with the first house. Having Aries here means that Mars is one of the rulers of your first house, and you have a Mars and Leo in the sixth house. So with this Mars and Leo, Mars is how we sort of do something. It's the physical body, the vitality, the energy with which we sort of thrust ourselves out into the world around us. And Leo is the zodiac sign ruled by the sun. There's a pride, there's a dignity, there's a warmth to Leo. With a Mars and Leo, we like to do things many times the right way. And we will take pride in our ability to create something. We can take great pleasure in using our hands or using the body. I've seen this in the charts of several athletes, actually. This is one where Mars being the part of you, if you were an athlete, it's the part that would chase after a ball. It's like your competitive drive. It's your masculine drive. With it in Leo, Leo wants to win. Leo is competitive. In fact, Leo assumes the win. So when Leo loses, there's a bit of like, oh man. So having a Mars in Leo gives, as I said, this sort of pride. We'll take pride with the way in which we conduct ourselves. And that is in the 6th house for you, which is the house of service. So taking a bit of pride in serving other people, taking pride in being able to heal someone else. Also, Mars rules the knife. It rules implements like tools. The 6th house is the house of health. So having a Mars in Leo, and I've seen Mars in the 6th house of a couple of veterinarians, and also my daughter has it. She wants to be a veterinarian. And I've seen this in the houses of several doctors. It's also one we see in the house of people who are in the military, believe it or not. With all the Pisces in your chart, I don't think that that's the direction for you. I don't think the military is the place for you. But there is this desire many times with Mars in the 6th house to learn a technique, because the 6th house is a house of techniques. Learning a technique very well that you can use on behalf of someone else. With it in Leo, there's this element of creativity, doing it in a way, learning that technique in such a way that it's when you master something, you understand how to do a technique so well that you can then be creative with it. You can then, just like with astrology. So astrology is something I know all the basics, right? With that, once you've mastered that, then it becomes this art form, as this synthesis. So it's the same thing. With anything you do with your hands, if you are a creator of any kind, Mars in the 6th house is going to allow you to enjoy learning a technique and honing it and then using it on behalf of someone else. Now, one thing about your Mars, it is retrograde. So when we have a planet retrograde with the personal planets, it in a sense kind of turns that planet a little sideways. So your Mars in Leo is ruled by your Sun in Pisces in the 12th house. So first of all, again, this is very creative, intuitive. You might even get a little bit lost in the process of creating something. Okay, it might become like this, becoming one with whatever you're creating. Whether this is, it could even be if you're working on someone. Let's say if you've got someone who's sick and you're helping them, sort of connecting with that person may be difficult to not connect with them, to not have that sort of little merge, and identifying yourself as someone who has that ability to creatively, like let's say you have a certain situation that might always be approached like, oh, we have someone who has a cut in their leg, and the typical approach may be XYZ, okay? You come along and you're going to probably be someone who goes, oh, the typical approach is XYZ. I'm going to try LMNOP. It's not only because of this Leo thing that's happening to your Mars, but also because of all the Aquarian 11th house influence you have in your chart. There's this element of being an creative individualist. You kind of are going to look at things slightly askew, slightly different from the way other people look at things, which is great for innovation and for creative problem solving. Okay, now let's move on through these houses. This should be fairly quick because these are untenanted houses, which means they don't have planets in them. But of course, we always have rulers. Your 2nd house is the house that shows us how you're going to survive. All right, it is. In modern parlance, we say it's the house of money. If you want to see if someone has good money planets, you look at their 2nd house, look at the rulers, and blah, blah, blah. So Mars and Venus are going to be your money planets. Mars, they're retrograde in Leo in the 6th house, and Venus, which you've got in Capricorn in the 11th house. Immediately, Mars in Leo suggests doing something with your physicality, with your body. In Leo, remember we were saying about the creativity of Leo, the learning a technique in such a way in the 6th house where you're doing it, like you've mastered it. See, okay, so in my mind, I know you'd mentioned to me you have a couple of like career options. I prefer for you a career option that has a high degree of creative output. If you are following a career path where you're satisfying part of your chart, such as going into the medical field or nursing, where that Piscean part of that need to compassionately serve those who are in need, that part of your chart will be satisfied, but there are a few other things that are going to be a little bit missing out on creative expression, okay? So that Mars and Leo in particular, I can see Mars and Leo if you were a surgeon, if you were someone who you could take the credit for, having healed someone, rather than when you're in the role of nursing. That's more of a role of assisting, even if the nurse does most of the work. It is what it is, okay? So when I see Mars in the 6th house, I like to see you in the role of someone who's assisting a process, such as someone who's in nursing. But a Mars in Leo feels to me like it would, after a while, feel a little bit like it wasn't being recognized for the hard work that was being put in, okay? So there is a suggestion here that being able to be expressive with your creativity is going to be an important part of not only just your happiness, but also how you earn income, okay? Also in the 2nd house, you have Taurus. So Taurus is highly aesthetic and creative and does have to do with the arts, has to do with the physical body, has to do with nurturing and feeding the physical body, has to do with beautifying the physical body, okay? With it ruled by a Venus in Capricorn, conjunct Uranus. That to me is being self-employed, straight up, in the 11th house. I feel like Venus conjunct Uranus, when we're talking about how you're going to be earning your income, it's coming from an independent source. Some might say, well, okay, having this ruler in the 11th house means your income is going to come from some sort of collective group, like an organization such as a hospital or such as, a non-for-profit. But in my mind, I'm seeing this more as Venus is the bliss in the chart. It's the sugar. It's the sweet spot. And a Venus in Capricorn, Capricorn is business, really. I mean, Capricorn's all about having an idea, planning the work, working the plan, and then reaping the harvest. So having a Venus in Capricorn says you would appreciate that, you would value that, that would be enjoyable for you. With it conjunct Uranus says you're going to value your personal freedom. You're also going to value the ability to help expand consciousness and also, allowing other people space to be free to do the things that they're wanting to do. Uranus is a freedom promoting planet. When it's right next to Venus, that means it's something you're going to value. Also, you have a lot of kind of little interesting, quirky Aquarius or Uranian or 11th house touches to your chart. They're going to add an element of quirkiness, okay, eccentricity to your personality. It's going to add a little bit of sparkle, and you with your Mercury and Aquarius in the 12th house, you do, I think I'm going to say, probably look at the world slightly from a kind of a slightly sideways angle. You might be the kid that growing up, the teacher was like, why are you daydreaming? Or, that's not how you're supposed to do the homework assignment, but like the way you do it is this totally different way, but it's really interesting. And you'd be like the kid I probably would want to have in a class if I was a teacher, just kind of the creative outside of the box kind of a thinker, okay? So with whatever you do for work and for career, this has to have room to be expressed, or else you'll be unhappy. And, you've mentioned to me 2 possible career options, and nursing, I get it, totally get why you would want to go into nursing. I'm not saying don't go into the health field, that's fine. What I think would be really cool for you is if you could figure out a way to, incorporate nursing into maybe come up with some kind of a non-for-profit business that you want to start, where nursing is a part of what you do. Interestingly enough, I have a lot of clients who come to me who have charts that do have strong markers of being independently employed, and in particular, sort of like in the world of the non-for-profit realm. And I think it's just because it's self-selecting for people who would come to an astrologer are going to be a little more liberal-minded, I suppose. So point being, for you with making money, you've got to be doing something where you're using a technique of some kind, or you are using your physical body, but you are creating. It's a Leo Mars, okay? And secondly, it's got to be something where it's bliss for you, where you're really enjoying it. You're creating pleasure of some kind. You're growing. I like this idea of you creating a business, growing a business. Perhaps you come up with some way to incorporate these 2 things, these 2 businesses. Maybe you can figure out a way to create a non-for-profit where you help teach people. Oh, here, this might be kind of fun, because your sister has the bakery. So for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, so the things I know about our client here is that he is studying nursing, and his sister has a bakery that he's worked in for a long period of time, and he could possibly go start his own bakery. Okay, these are the options. What about something where you do have your own business, because that's, I would say, strongly indicated by this chart. You have your own business, but at the same time, maybe it incorporates, maybe you're teaching people how to cook food in a way that's healthy. Maybe you're doing non-for-profit, maybe you're teaching classes at community centers, or you're helping somehow on the nutrition side of things. That's also a possibility. Or you're just simply, I don't know, you need to get creative on this, blending food and the creation of yummy food, like what a bakery makes, which is very enjoyable and pleasurable. Blending that with this nursing side of you, the side that wants to nurture people and heal them and make them whole. I think that there is a business idea in there, so I would play with that. Third house, the house of communication, you have Taurus there as well as Gemini. Taurus, that's ruled by that Venus of yours conjunct Uranus, up in the 11th house. So what we have with this Uranian influence, again, you also have a Mercury in Aquarius. Your brain is going to work in a way that's different. It's just going to be a little bit sideways. Think of the planet Uranus. It is on its side, okay? Apply that to the way you think, the way you communicate. It's going to be uniquely your own thing. I've seen this with people who've even had like speech impediments, or who've had or have been dyslexic, things like this. Not to say that that's the case for you, but it's just your brain is going to work in a way that it could be a little bit ADD as well. Venus conjunct Uranus in the 11th house does speak to having the ability to channel as well, because it's kind of a cosmic connection. Uranus, 11th house, when it's connected to the 3rd house, many times gives someone that ability to sort of receive downloads and things like that. The co-ruler of Mercury is in the 12th house in Aquarius, and that's very cosmic-y, spiritual. It can be spacey. Your brain, you might at times just be like, oh my gosh, I need to focus and concentrate. Like, I'm all over the place. Because it can just, in Aquarius, the mind can have sort of its own symphony happening inside, especially in that 12th house. So reining it in can be a little challenging, and ADD can be really common. I have Uranus in my 3rd house, and I'm definitely ADD. But it gives a quirkiness to the way that the mind works, but it gives a certain level of genius. Doesn't necessarily mean IQ is high. It could, but it's just the way you think and communicate will be slightly different from other people, and it's just your own unique thing. So it's your own freak flag. I say fly it. 4th house is, and also, by the way, with 11th house, 12th house, connections to the 3rd house of communication, we have the New Age, spirituality, anything that is explaining existence from a world of symbols, from the world of, metaphor, or looking at the cosmos to try and understand who we are. That's all 11th, 12th house. So your brain has probably kind of always been more fanciful, more in the world of imagination and understanding, or at least wanting to understand things from kind of this new agey, ethereal perspective. Okay, 4th house. 4th house is the house of home. This is our Cancer house. You have Gemini on the cusp and Cancer in the 4th house, which brings us up into your 12th house and into your 1st house. So what that means is 4th house shows us a bit about our sense of belonging. Think of the 4th house as at the bottom of the chart. It's like the womb of the chart. It's quite unconscious. It's a Cancer, right? It's ruled by the moon, naturally. And for you, Mercury and the moon both are the rulers of this house. So we've got both that desire for conversation, exploration, sort of multiples, even having more than one home, having a hard time sort of settling down in one place. And then we also, on the other hand, have, with the moon as the co-ruler, a desire to be close to the feminine. The mother many times is... the mother archetype in particular, when you have Cancer or the moon in the 4th house, the mother archetype is really important. And nurturing other people, helping them feel safe, and you yourself also being helps to feel safe in relationships can be really important. Moon for you, because it's in the 1st house, I kind of feel more like you would be the protector, having that moon in that Aries house placement. And I don't know what your relationship is like with your parents, with your mom and your dad, if you had a sense of the home, if you had more than one home, if you were forced to move at some point when you're younger, or if there was, like, because of the Gemini on the cusp of the 4th house, it makes me think of duality. And with the ruler being in the 12th house of dissolution, like dissolving something, making something kind of go away. I have seen this in the charts of people who have dealt with a mother who is gone. It's your Mercury, which makes me think more of siblings or extended family. Makes me think more of like moving, like that you had a bit of a busy, I guess, childhood with a bit of moving happening. Okay, now let's move into the 5th. So 5th house, we've got, this is the house of creativity. It's the Leo house. This is going to show us a bit about the ego and what satisfies the ego. It's going to show us how you like to play. This is our house of play, our house of a sunny day. That's what it makes you think of. So it covers everything from, again, creativity, pregnancy, the pregnant woman. It covers the divine child, children in general. You have Cancer and Leo here. It's the mother and the father. It's kind of a nice place to have them in this 5th house of the divine child. The rulers being in the 1st house and the 12th house for you. I'm kind of wondering what the situation was like with your parents, because having the moon in such a prominent angular 1st house where it's the mother and it's sort of informing your identity, and then having the sun, which represents the father, kind of tucked away in the 12th house, there is the suggestion perhaps you felt separated from your father. You could have actually literally been separated from him. Whatever it is that you do for creative pursuit may be in a sense to reclaim or redeem your relationship with your father. When we move into the 6th house, Mars and Leo, Leo is the sign that's ruled by the sun. It's very much the sort of the father or the masculine. So is Capricorn. But with Leo, you've got that Mars that's retrograde in Leo. So I'm almost wondering if you would take action in your life and do things with helping your family, helping family members, helping, whomever, out of a sense of duty, and to sort of, in a way, help your father, help your family. Like, it's just what a man does. That's very Mars and Leo. Leo's sort of got this dignified bearing to it. And Mars says, well, I'm going to do something in the 6th house that's dutiful, that's service-oriented. And because, in my mind, the sun of yours is holding space, as sort of the father figure for you, the family, in a sense, it's that family unit. I feel like, that desire to dutifully do right by your family is going to be something really deeply ingrained in your psyche. And especially the Mars retrograde, there are going to be times when you do things for them that are taking away from what it is you're really wanting to do for yourself, especially with it in the 6th house, especially with all those Pisces. So again, it's just being very clear about your personal boundaries and what it is you're wanting from your life. And if you're wanting to serve others, that's fantastic. Just make sure that it is in a way that satisfies, your life path as well and your purpose. We're going to talk, by the way, about your South Node in a moment when we do part 3. We'll talk about your North Node in the 8th house and your South Node in the 2nd house. So just FYI, I forgot to mention that. Let's move into the 6th house. So 6th house, this is the house that's it's the Virgo house. This has to do with how we serve others. This has to do with our health, our habits, how we serve ourselves in a sense. It's a very kind of quiet house. It's sort of like we had sort of the loud, creative 5th house, then we move into the 6th house. It's a bit more subdued and quiet before we pop up into the 7th house, which is, the 1st house on the top of the birth chart. It has to do with relationships. So the 6th house is this one. There's a sense here of sublimation, of putting aside what one wants, in order to serve others. With a Mars that's retrograde in Leo, that desire to be a creative is there. It exists. That desire to learn the technique of something is there. With it retrograde, as I said, it kind of makes that planet a little bit sideways. And so you may put aside your creative endeavors in order to take care of other people's stuff. Okay, you might use your physical body, your physical energy, your life force. You may send that energy, flow it towards people who need your help, even though it's not necessarily satisfying you. directly, not maybe satisfying your creative urges directly. It's satisfying the Pisces part of you that wants to be self-sacrificing and giving, but this Mars of yours kind of gets left in the dirt, okay? This Mars is also quincunx Saturn, and it is opposite Mercury, trines Jupiter. So with the Jupiter trine, that just enhances your energy, also makes even more so that desire to use your gifts and talents on behalf of someone else. It enhances that wanting to serve someone. It's like, oh, I know how to take care of that issue, so I'm just going to take care of it, okay? Having a quincunx to Saturn applies that sense of duty and responsibility even more so to the Mercury. So those creative impulses, even more so, kind of with a quincunx or an inconjunct, it kind of shuts them up a little bit. It's like, well, you want to do that, but this is what we're supposed to do. This is our duty. This is our responsibility. We self-identify as being someone who shows up when they say they're supposed to, and so we're not going to fully use that part of us. That's that creative part. Okay, your Mercury also is opposite your Mars. So Mercury, the mind, there's a connection between your physical body and your head. And I don't know if Mercury is an interesting one because it's also the hands. It sort of rules the use of the hands. And Aquarius is quite an electrical zodiac sign. I've seen this in the chart of people who have the gift of healing. And with Mercury opposite Mars, Mars is your body, your physical body. With it retrograde, it's in that, this is the axis of service, the axis of healing. Mercury's in the house of redemption. Mars is in the house of the Virgo house of being the servant. So using your physical body, using your hands in such a way that you're able to create some sort of healing for someone, as well as it's very creative. Leo and Aquarius are individualistic, and they are going to do something in a way that's unique. It's your own unique way. It could be, I have a good friend who is not professionally trained as a massage therapist, but he has an ability to, I had it thrown out, like my upper back was thrown out, and he did this thing where he just was like very lightly touching my back, just in different places, and just kind of manipulating and moving my arms very, very gently, like imperceptibly gently. And he fixed my back, like everything went back into place. And it was just his ability to kind of feel his way through the structure of the body. That is what, it's like your brain and your hands, they all talk to each other. Like you can use your hands, you can use your physical body to receive information from the world around you. That makes sense. I hope that makes sense. It's like there's a consciousness in your hands themselves, like an intelligence that's a bit heightened. And it's in the 12th house, so it's going to come kind of unconsciously. It's just like you could just touch something and sense the person where their pain is at in their body. Or perhaps you can even touch an object and sort of have a feeling about it. Maybe certain objects give you the creeps, because they have an energy to them. They have a feel to them that just doesn't quite feel right to you physically. All right. So you have to let me know about that. I could be totally off, but we'll see. In the 6th house, you've got, Leo is there and Virgo. So Leo takes pride in, wherever Leo falls, we want to have play and fun in this area, but we also sort of take pride in the use of this area. It's attached to the ego. And because this is the 6th house of the servant, again, serving and helping others is something that you're going to identify with, you're going to take pride in, you're going to want to show up and do well by other people. Virgo in the 6th house also is just naturally wants to be there, is ruled by your Mercury in Aquarius. So I do feel like with what you do creatively or what you do for career, okay, you may have some shifts. You may have kind of, I'm going to do this thing, it's kind of weird, and then I'm going to do this other thing, and they're totally not related to one another, like just completely different. That's the Aquarian sort of influence on the 6th house. I wouldn't be surprised if you were someone who does have gift, like healing gift, that's alternative, that's not Western medicine. But perhaps if you've been interested in going to an osteopathic school, becoming an osteopathic physician, that would be a rad use of this birth chart. I don't know, I didn't think about that until just now. Love that idea. If osteopathy is something you're interested in, do it, because not to take on the karma of what you do for your career, but really, like that would be fantastic for this entire birth chart. So, okay, we're going to stop here and we will continue with part 3.